Okay, so I started the live streaming. Okay, so would you like to start?
Yes, please. Thank you so much for
Yes.
all the preparations. Well, welcome this morning, the first day of the month. It's time for our monthly webinar from the Working Group Human Capital, Creating a Year of Skills. My name is Naomi. I'm the leader of the Working Group Human Capital of Water Europe, and I'm very happy to be here today with you to introduce this webinar as well. The Working Group Human Capital is a working group that's focusing on the human-centric approach to create a water-smart society. And with us, together with the members of Water Europe, we are here to support to the development of skills. So far, we have had our webinars on the skills of citizen engagement and the role of human capital development and human skills. And today, I'm very happy to introduce to you Cristian Carboni for this session of the webinar, who will introduce the topic, the speakers, and will take you to the webinar. Thank you.
Thank you, Naomi. Now I share my screen. Give me 1 minute. Okay. I hope you can see my screen. Okay. The topic of today is how to set up an innovation ecosystem. I want only to stress some point of this, underline some points about this topic, because I wanted to leave the floor to the other speaker that for sure are more competent than me. The point that I wanted to underline is that a new paradigm shift is essential to facilitate innovation and knowledge co-production, because we are in a context of rapid change, growing complexity and interdependence of all factors. This meaning that if we wanted to make an efficient and if we want that our innovation are used from the citizen on the fields, we must involve all the actors in innovation and governance process. This meaning we needed to involve a public institution, because they make the directive, they make the law, they can give public funding. We need to involve a cognitive and educational institution, because we know to develop know-how, to training, in particular the young generation and all the people, giving them know-how and take innovation and idea. We needed to involve private business company because we needed to apply the research and make them this research and innovation competitive also from an economic point of view, in particular sustainability for an economic point of view. In particular, we need to involve more the civil society and the active citizen, because if we don't involve the citizen in the innovation, we for sure don't achieve the results. We need to aggregate all the sector if you want to create an innovation ecosystem that generates more inclusive and sustainable business and institution. Because we need to achieve not only innovation from an economic point of view, a sustainability from economic point of view, but also from social, environmental, and cultural point of view. But I wanted to introduce the speaker that work on this topic every day. In particular, I started with Filippo Ronzani, which is my colleague in Industria de Nora. He is the Open Innovation Manager at Industria de Nora. And Filippo, I leave the floor to you, because this is your job every day. I know it because I work with you. and I waiting learning something new from you today, as all the other people participating in this webinar. Thank you, Filippo, and the floor is yours.
Thank you, Cristian, for the nice introduction. Hello, everyone. Let me put this in the presentation mode. So, as Cristian said, my name is Filippo Ronzani. I cover the role of innovation and open innovation manager at the Nora. I spent many years in the United States, and now I'm back in Europe, and I'm happy also to see the differences in how the ecosystems of innovation are set up in the two continents. So I will take inspiration from the Pentagon that Cristian showed to tell everybody a little bit of theory of what an innovation ecosystem can be, how it should be set up, and why we should work in an ecosystem. So first of all, I would like to introduce some generic definitions. So an ecosystem, from a biology perspective, is a system formed by the interactions of many organisms that live in specific environment. These are dynamic entities. They have a specific capacity to absorb disturbance. So when something happens that changes the dynamic of the ecosystem with time can actually change and be resilient to the disturbance. So an ecosystem for innovation is something that actually helps be more resilient as a business or as a research institution, and so on and so forth. And of course, there needs to be a slide with a light bulb, since we're talking about innovation, just to give a sense of what we think innovation is. So sometimes we consider innovation as just like the the spark of the bulb, there is a great idea, and that's it. Actually, it's not true. Innovation is a very complex process that takes ideas from inception to impact. It's very operational driven. It can be very complex. There are some people who are very good at doing innovation, some others are not. It's something that can be learned. There is a little bit of genius once in a while, but in general, it's something that can be analyzed and used as a process like anything else in any other organization. And why is it so important to talk about ecosystems now? Similar to what Cristian said, we're living in an era of rapid change. Also, in the last couple of decades, we had a very, very big globalization that basically made the world flat. We're talking about global supply chains now, and we also saw the disturbance from COVID, for example, a few years ago, and what the impact was on this global system for innovation. But if we actually look at what happens when innovation occurs, we realize that while stakeholders can be anywhere, and the impact can be anywhere, the inception steps of any innovation process are most likely localized in one specific innovation hub or ecosystem. So what is one of the main ingredients for an ecosystem to happen? The first one is stakeholders. This pentagon is a little different from what Cristian showed, but in general, what we need in an ecosystem is universities. We need research. We need talent. We need corporates. We need startups and entrepreneurs. But at the same time, we need risk capital and governments. And more specifically, what can these stakeholders bring to the system? Well, corporations can bring some structure, innovation processes. They can bring capital, especially the larger corporations. They have an extensive network of supply chain partners. While entrepreneurs have a lot of experience in how to set up and bring to maturity a business, they usually have a lot of network, and they are very good at working in the community. Universities bring to an ecosystem specialized infrastructure and knowledge, and especially talent that can continue to work in a university or can move to corporations or create startups and become entrepreneurs. Risk capital is basically the money. They can actually bring early stage investment in startup companies, which is something that corporations sometimes have a very hard time doing. And eventually we have governments who sometimes are not very involved in the innovation process, but they provide policies, infrastructure, financial support, and in many cases, like for example in the water space, they're actually one of the main drivers for things to actually change and bring a positive impact in how we manage our water systems. So is it enough to have these 5 stakeholders and interacting among each other to create a good innovation ecosystem? Well, it's a necessary condition, but it's not always sufficient. So what does an innovation ecosystem need to actually sail away and take off and really become a great hub for innovation? Well, we need a good combination of 2 capacities. We can define them as innovation and entrepreneurial capacity. The innovation capacity is the ability to imagine, develop new ideas. So it's the light bulb and the capability of developing an idea enough to bring it to the first steps of impact. The entrepreneurial capacity is instead more business related, is the ability to start, grow, and scale an enterprise, which can bring these great ideas to actual maturity. And so we can see that there are some geographical areas where you have great innovation capacity, some others where you have great entrepreneurial capacity. And here, just a very simple graph here report 2 countries in Asia that are famous to be in these 2 categories. South Korea has great inventions, great innovation capacity, but a pretty low capacity to create new businesses. You have gigantic corporations there like Samsung, Doosan, and Hyundai. They actually drive innovation a lot, but you don't have a lot of startup companies, for example, there. And on the other extreme of the graph, there is Thailand, who doesn't really have a lot of universities and innovation capacity, but a lot of capability to create and scale new businesses. So there are some areas in the world that actually fit in this question mark flag here. And I just show here a few examples around the world. This is just some of the famous innovation ecosystem in the world. You can see some in the United States, in South America, in Europe, in Asia. There are a lot of places where actually all these stakeholders can be combined very effectively and efficiently, where great ideas and researches can actually be scaled to new to create more impact also on a commercial level. And in general, we see that innovation is likely to happen more successfully where all these stakeholders are located and where you have the combination of good innovation and entrepreneurial capacity. So these spaces have a few things in common. They have specialization. Like these ecosystems sometimes are specialized in a specific topic. Like Silicon Valley is not famous for pharmaceutical innovation, for example. They show diversity in terms of talent and skills. They have capital, in some cases a lot of capital. They have infrastructures, not only research institutions, but corporations and great labs where ideas can be tested. They have demand, so they have a good supply chain, they have vendors and they have clients, but especially they have the right culture. The people that work in innovation in these areas really want to make things better. They want to make change, they want to make an impact. And they, thanks to that, they actually can work together to make innovation work faster. So now I'm going to focus a little more into the corporate perspective of innovation and how to work in innovation ecosystem. So I work in a corporation. I've been working there for 10 years at this point. So that's where I can actually provide more experience. So I want to start with a couple of hurdles that are very important to be considered when, as a corporate, we engage in an ecosystem. First one is reputation. We really need, if we're not creating an ecosystem from scratch, but we want to be involved in an existing hub for innovation, we need to adapt to the specific ecosystem. Otherwise, we can have very bad reputational effects. And here I'm going to tell you a brief story about Google and Microsoft. They tried to establish new headquarters in Boston a few years ago. They were already, also Google was already a major IT corporation and very famous for making great innovations. And Google opened this headquarters in Cambridge, Massachusetts, trying to engage with all the people in MIT and Harvard and the whole Boston ecosystem. So they created a very closed box. They had very, very strict confidentiality agreements to be signed just to enter the building. And Microsoft instead opened basically an open house. Everybody was allowed to go there to experiment. They had a very strict and fluid interaction with some of the MIT labs. And eventually, after a few months, Google had a very bad riptide effect in terms of reputation. They needed to completely change their approach into how engaging with that specific ecosystem. And maybe what they had learned in Silicon Valley was really not the good starting point to work in Boston, Massachusetts. And at the same time, there is the other hurdle of the frustration that occurs almost always when corporates and startups try to work together. Have different way of operating, they have different needs, different desires, and so sometimes really there is a clash and there is not this possibility to actually move forward. And if corporates are able to engage effectively with an ecosystem, specifically with startup companies, a great effect is they can actually improve also their internal system for innovation. And the corporation usually has both. They work with ecosystems, with all the other stakeholders, but they also do internal innovation, of course. So what are the main aspects of an innovation system in a company? We can summarize them in the 4 R's. I put them here. Rationality is basically the why and the processes that are used to select ideas and projects and how to move forward with a portfolio of projects. The reward part is how we decide to continue with the project or to stop it. We need to be able to not do everything just because it's interesting, but we need to have the capability to say, hey, this was a great idea. It's good that we did some scouting, we did some testing, but now we need to stop. And then the last 2 are the most important ones in terms of engaging with an ecosystem. They're risk and the management of relationships. And we have a couple of slides, one per each of these aspects. First one is risk. And the first thing that I need to say is the difference between uncertainty and risk. So uncertainty is something that we cannot get rid of. It's the probability of something happening. So we have here the photo of a climber. It is intrinsically a risky, let's say, activity. The uncertainty is always there. There might be a piece of rock that breaks when the climber holds on it. And we cannot get rid of it. It's just something we need to accept. The risk on the other side is the impact of this undesirable event. So if there is a piece of rock that breaks, the climber falls. So now the climber in the photo is well assured with ropes. And so if that event actually takes place, the risk of being hurt is much, much less compared to the case where you have a free solo climber. So risk can have major impacts on any organization, not only corporate. So you can lose investment, a lot of money sometimes. You can have a problem with reputation. And you can miss business opportunities. So you have a lot of de-risking strategies. I'm not going into the details of that because otherwise it would take a whole different webinar. But 2 things are very important for corporates to learn how to do in order to de-risk their innovation strategies and roadmaps. First one is to create portfolios, spin-outs, and partnerships, which means engaging with other entities, with other corporates, with startups, with the ecosystem where they're working. And the other one is moving before all the unknowns are resolved. If we want to move forward with an innovation project, knowing everything about it, knowing all the successes, all the specific numbers of the return on investment, we will never do anything. So we need to have a little bit of courage to actually start climbing the slope of innovation, and working with other partners, we can actually reduce risk by engaging in an ecosystem. So these are a few words about risk, and then we'll see about what happens when organizations venture out trying to find, develop, and commercialize new ideas. So these are just a few things that corporations can do to engage with ecosystems in order to do innovation. They can do smaller and larger scale activities. They can do tech scouting, so they can venture out and see what's happening in universities and in small companies and other companies to understand what are the new technologies that are being developed. They can set up venture capital systems, so they can actually invest in new technologies and bring new ideas to commercialization. They can work with other entities with licensing. It can be licensing in or licensing out. They can create alliances and joint ventures, which means basically very strict collaborations with other entities. They can spin off businesses. So maybe some corporations can manage to develop a great idea. It doesn't really fit with the core business, and they're afraid that the idea might get really drowned in the whole system of the corporation. So they decide to spin it off and to make it live its own life. And then they can engage in, let's say, more innovative and fun ways, with the entrepreneurs and startups, creating accelerators or hackathons, which are basically events where the people are called in to solve some problems. And why should they do that? I mean, the first thing is to mitigate risk. We saw it in the previous slide, but they can also fill technical gaps. So a corporation, especially in the new world, can't do everything on their own. A century ago, maybe there were some organizations that were able to do everything. They did not turn out in some cases to be very successful. So in general, we need to recognize what are our core technical competencies and where we need some help in carrying out projects. We engaging with ecosystems also to overcome internal resistance, the not invented here syndrome. We have a lot of problems in selling ideas to the top management sometimes. And when we get ideas from the outside world, sometimes it's much easier to get new things done. We can have influence on the market, and this is especially the case when we create alliances and joint ventures with other groups. And overall, we can definitely increase the success rate of our innovation activities. So just a recap here, I wanted to bring together the major ingredients that are needed for an innovation ecosystems to work. And the first one is stakeholders. We saw the Pentagon. We need to engage with corporations, startup companies, entrepreneurs in general, universities and research institutions, governments, the people that live in an ecosystem, and listen to what the needs are and how we can make the world better. We need both innovation and entrepreneurial capacity. Otherwise, we get stuck to either great research or either a lot of SMEs, but we cannot really do big impact. We need the right culture. We need to be open to engaging with the right people. We saw the example of Google and Microsoft. We need to adapt to the culture, or we need to create a culture that facilitates the engagement in an ecosystem. And last but not the least is specific skills. This was introduced in the first slide by Naomi. It's very important that we develop the right skills to work in innovation and to work in innovation in an ecosystem. Just a few examples. We could talk about this for a long time, but we don't have it. We need to act as leaders. We need to be good at negotiating win-win solutions with other partners. If we want to have everything for us, we will never be able to successfully engage with the other stakeholders of the ecosystem. We need to be good team workers and collaborators. These are often used as synonyms, but I would like to spend just a couple of words to explain the difference. So teamwork is the ability to implement an idea together with other partners, to actually work as a team to bring something to life. Collaboration, this is my interpretation of things, is the capability of putting different skills and areas of expertise together to actually come up with new ideas for innovation. We need to be able to adapt to novelty and to different situations. We need to focus on the customers and especially the job to be done and their needs. We need to be good at networking and be open-minded in the way we engage with other entities. To conclude my presentation, I wanted to bring an example of an ecosystem the Nora has engaged with for a few years now. It's called NEWT, which stands for Nanosystems Engineering Research Center for Nanotechnology-Enabled Water Treatment. It's very long, but I've been with the Nora in this center for 6 years now. It's been a lot of fun. It's a US-based ecosystem that tries to accelerate innovation by bringing together mostly universities and corporations. But you'll see here that it is localized specifically in an area in between Texas and Arizona where there is really a problem with water. There is also Yale University in New Haven that has a great focus on sustainability, which brought the university in the system. But in general, what this ecosystem is trying to do is to connect the needs of the industry and the capabilities of great research centers to make research more relevant and to help commercialize new ideas. So what's in it for corporates? Well, corporates have early access to IP that is generated by these universities. They can have access to facilities to run tests for technologies. They have a lower overhead possibility to sponsor research projects. So it's cheaper to run collaborations with universities. They have more opportunity to commercialize some IPs, and they have access to talent. Like the young people that work in this ecosystem were fantastic. I've engaged with tens and tens of master students, PhD students, and postdocs. It was always a pleasure to actually hear what students wanted to do, what their ideas were, and where their expertise is were bringing them. And for universities, there is the feedback on the industrial relevance of their research. So I've seen through the years changing the direction of most of their research, trying to respond to the industry needs. There is access to training in the industry and to jobs for the young people. So there is a specific program for internships. Universities can commercialize their IP faster, and they have a higher chance of creating startup companies. So here is just the list of all the entities that are part of this ecosystem. And there are not a lot of citizen associations or government entities, just a few in the central line. But in general, what they were able to do successfully is to bring together the whole value chain and supply chain. So we have component manufacturers until the end users. And so bringing together these stakeholders was allowing the universities to do research with the equipment and material manufacturers that could be applied to the end users and the service providers. And so this is just an example of how an ecosystem can be created, even if it's not localized in one space. They were able to put together the right skills, the right culture. And it has been a lot of work on the side of the NEWT Center, but I think that they did a great job also in ensuring their economic long-term sustainability and let's say life without federal government support. If you want to learn more, you can have a look on the internet, or we can talk about it in another setting. But this could be a nice example to give. And with this, I'm done. I thank you for your attention. I will leave the mic to Professor Vittoria Giannini, who will talk about the water-oriented living labs.
Thank you. I will share my screen. I hope you are able to see it. Okay. So thank you very much for the invitation to this webinar. I'm Vittoria Giannini, and I'm an associate professor at the University of Padua, more specifically at the Department of Agronomy, Food, Natural Resources, Animal, and Environment. And today, it's a pleasure for me to give you some really practical example of these ecosystems in which many people collaborate, which is represented by living labs. I would say that living lab is a terminology that is pretty used in the last periods, and I would like to remind you definition of living lab, which is much more close to the field of my experience, which is represented by agriculture. Indeed, living lab started there to be developed in a completely different environment, I would say, which is much more close to industry, as the previous speaker was introducing. But today I will present their shape in a new environment, which is the one of agriculture. So for us, the agro-ecosystem living lab is a transdisciplinary environment that involves many stakeholders that in our case are represented for sure by farmers, by scientists, and other people that could be interested in the topic, and that together work for co-designing, monitoring, and evaluating new or existing agricultural practices and technologies on working landscape, with the purpose of improving their effectiveness, of course, but also to help further adoption of new technologies, new practices. I have had the opportunity of really work a lot on living labs, thanks to the project fostered by Agritech National Center that was built thanks to the National Recovery Plan. That in one of its main working group and spoke as one in which I'm involved with my colleagues, which is the working package 4.2, dealing with the smart climate and resilient agriculture and forestry. Within this work package, we have a specific task, which is the task number 1, in which our purpose is to create a farm network that could basically adopt innovative technologies and management strategies to be applied to agriculture and forestry. So for us, it was evident that to make possible this adoption of innovation, living labs could represent the right environment in which we needed to work. Our living labs are all located for sure in agricultural environments, but have different axes on which they have been built. And these axes are 3, which are carbon, water, and energy, which are all really important to sustain climate-smart agriculture. Today, in this context in which we are more focused on water, I will be presenting you what we are doing in our water-oriented living lab, in which we are strictly working with another partner from academic world, which is University of Udine. And you can see from this map, we have different places in which we are diffusely working on some hotspot I would say, problems related to water management in agriculture. We have different kind of partners, different kind of stakeholder engaged depending on the topics we are working on. Just a brief overview of some of the hot topics we are working on that basically represent the crucial point on which these living labs are built. Not all the living labs we are working on have the same kind of maturity. So in some cases, the ones that are encircled in blue are the living labs that are still in co-projecting phase, okay? So we are still working together with different stakeholders to understand what could be the most suited strategies that we can start to develop and monitor. The ones that are represented in red are the most mature one, I would say. The iterative process is already started, and so they represent the case study I will present more in detail today. But just to give you an overview, to understand what are the topics that still represent an opportunity to discuss and debate in agriculture, I will present you the first living lab case study, which is located in Eraclea, so close to Venice, in which we have problems related to salt intrusion. And so we really would like to set up new strategies for valorizing brackish water for irrigation purposes. So in these cases, our partners are represented by farmers that work in that area, but also the local land reclamation authority. And also we are trying to engage other kind of manufacturers that can help in, for example, pipe construction, as well as irrigation system that can help us in solving this problem. Similar but different is the second topic I'm going to present you, which is the one that is we are facing in Emilia-Romagna region, in which we would like to exploit the salty liquid phase of the digestate that we produce in many agricultural farms and that could be profitably used for irrigation purpose. As we have experienced in this farm, the problem and the main obstacle is represented by the concentration of salt in this matrix. So we are still co-projecting and working to understand what could be the proper project that could help to eliminate this fraction from water and then make possible that this water could be profitably used for agricultural purpose. The third is much more related to remote sensing and water. So we are working in some farms located in the area of Rovigo in Veneto to establish how to properly use sensors and data coming from satellite to better optimize the quantity of water that we distribute to crops. But let's go to the example which is more, I would say, mature, so from which I can really give you some results on what we have done during this year. And to better introduce what we have done, I need again to clarify a terminology that I will go to introduce, which is the term on-farm experimentation. What does it mean? We have said that living labs are environments of co-building, co-innovation, cooperation, but how can I make this possible with farmers? One methodology that we apply, that we use, is the on-farm experimentation. So basically, it's the proper experiment of co-building, doing things together. So basically what we do is bringing together scientists with farmers and other stakeholders around the table, discussing a problem, trying to identify a solution and test this solution in the real world, so in the real farm. So thanks to the farmers that is allowing to collaborate, we try to shape the solution to the specific farm that he or she owns, and there we make possible to foster open innovation, basically, which is already suited to the real world. And this could represent only the strategy, according to our opinion, that can make possible to make easier also that other farmers could mimic the innovation, and so can really make possible the diffusion of innovation. The definition I have presented here in this slide is the one proposed by Lacoste and other authors in a recent paper published on Nature. But I would say that the root of this concept are far and can go up to the last century, in which Simon Knapp, that was a physician from the United States, was stating the importance of demo farms and the importance of involving farmers in scientific process, basically telling that what a man hears, he may doubt, what he sees is still may doubt, but what he contributes to create cannot be doubt. So making the sense of the importance of really collaborating. And this is what we have done in our demo farm located in Podere Fiorentina, so in Sadona di Piave, in which we made possible to create a collaboration between the local land reclamation authority, the university, some manufacturers from the irrigation sector, some company providing seeds, and some companies providing organic matrices. Which was the problem that we need to solve? Contributing to increase the soil organic matter in soil in the shortest time possible. So we needed to really rebuild the strategy of managing fertility in soil in that area, and we started from this demo farm. First of all, introducing a new way of fertilizing, using organic matrices. We used compost and digestate. But we also introduced another innovation, avoiding that during winter the soil could be bare or at least populated by weeds. And we introduced ad hoc crops, which are cover crops, that for people who are not familiar with, are crops that we introduce basically for environmental purpose. They could be able to prevent soil erosion, for example, could prevent lixiviation problems. So they were introduced just to be sure that the soil could be covered during winter. And then we basically divided the demo farm in two parts, one that was micro-irrigated and the other that was rain-fed. This strategy was used from 2019 to 2022. And for sure, during these years, there were many meetings among the different stakeholders involved to understand what was happening to our area. After 4 years of this kind of setup of experiment, we could be able, thanks to soil analysis, to understand that for sure compost was the strategy that was able to contribute to the greater increase of soil organic carbon in soil. So basically, it was the strategy, the fertility strategy, that was able to properly answer to our question. So after some readjustment and retalking and rediscussing about the members of this living lab, in 2022, we decided to modify our strategy, because we understood that although compost was the strategy that was more helpful in terms of increasing soil organic matter, still the grain yields in terms of both soybean and maize that we were cropping in those areas was not comparable to the one of the surroundings. So we were basically gaining lower productivity compared to the other farmers. So thanks to the iterative process, which is typical of these approaches, so we still need to rethink what we do in order to properly find a solution to solve our problem. We decided to introduce some innovation in 2023, so during the last summer. What we did was to compare compost, that was the most profitable in terms of increasing soil organic carbon, with another kind of fertilization strategies, which was integrating compost and mineral fertilizer. And what we did was also to compare two different hybrids of maize. I would say conventional maize and drought-tolerant hybrid of maize that could be more able to cope with problems related to prolonged drought that we were experiencing in the area during the last years. What we could observe after this readjustment that we made during the last year was that the idea of introducing this new strategy of integrating compost and mineral fertilization, yes, was able to sustain and support greater production. So it was a good idea. But our idea of introducing a hybrid maize compared to conventional one was not so successful. So as you can see from this graph, there were not so big differences between the Aquamax, which is the drought-tolerant hybrid, and the conventional one. But it is also important, as always happen in agriculture and agronomy, to explain the results. During the last summer, you maybe may remember, we had really prolonged rainfall during summer. So basically, our crops never experienced drought stress. So for this reason, to really understand if these strategies that we have integrated in our system could be profitably used and acquired by farmers, we need to experience and repeat the experiment again, as we are doing right now for this summer. As well as we need to engage more farmers in this on-farm experimentation that can help to build a more wide established database that can really contribute to create a more robust scenario on what is happening. We are really happy to have this experience of Living Lab, which is working properly in San Donà. And for this reason, we create frequently open days, workshop, to make possible that a lot of people could be engaged and be familiar to what we are doing, could be really open to host some on-farm experimentation, and so contribute to develop new solution about how to properly use water irrigation in summer in our areas. So we are really thinking that these activities are pretty useful. Indeed, we have many farmers that contribute, as you can see from these pictures, in which we have created different occasion of collaboration, different occasion of discussion in different area of Veneto and Friuli Venezia Giulia. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Vittoria, for your interesting presentation. And also thank you to you, Filippo. I think we have 5 minutes time for some question. If you want, we can try to synthesize some questions that arrive in chat. One, starting from your presentation, Vittoria, you are talking, explain to us the way for involving the farmers, no, the citizens that need to adopt the innovation. But the question is also for you, Filippo, how we can involve people in innovation ecosystem. As you can see from my slide, I stress the need to involve citizens, because if we don't do it, we risk of not creating this knowledge of if people are not awareness of the problem, of a potential solution. I can give to you an example. No, if we make it separating waste collection, but people from a technology point of view, but people at home don't do this, with innovation don't work. No, and we know that also in some research project there is a lot of research project funded from the European Commission, but no one knows this innovation. No, this is the two topics: how we can involve citizens in application and knowledge about the innovation, and how we can spread this knowledge and can be applied. This is for you, Filippo and Vittoria, or Naomi, what you want.
Okay.
I hope to synthesize well. Sorry if you don't well, but if you want to make a new question, you can do.
Okay, I don't know, maybe I can start. Okay, I have a particular category of citizens because we have farmers, okay, that they have their particular problems. And thanks to this methodology, which is on-farm experimentation, I think that the success is made by the strategy. We start from a farmer-centric perspective. So basically, we try to build innovation starting from a real problem of farmers. So they are really involved they are really willing to solve the problem. And since we start from a real problem, I think that it's easier to get involvement. So we start from a problem that is not a problem of one farmer, is a problem that is shared by many of them. we start to developing innovation and innovative strategies in basically the most equipped farm, and we transform this farm in a demo farm and hopefully in a lighthouse farm that can make easier the mimicking process for the others. I don't know if I was clear enough in answering.
Cristian, can I jump into that as well? Since we're here with a webinar for the working group Human Capital and the Human Centricity Skills Development, I have a question for Vittoria. How do you see the role of capacity building of human centricity in these whole big living labs? How can skills development and human centricity play a bigger role, or maybe it already does, but we don't see it yet? What's your view on it?
Okay, I think that to make possible this process of innovation is not easy at all. So basically what we are doing is to equip our groups of people which have specialization in social sciences. So to make possible to bridge the gap and to make possible this crosstalk among different people that are, I would say, specialist enabled. What we do is to ask for help to social scientists that make possible to create this connection among all of us, because it's not really easy to work together, starting with very different perspectives. But in the end, if we really try to see the problem from the perspective of farmers, which is art, we can really contribute to boost the innovation process.
And maybe Filippo, for you, the same question, because you explained this whole corporate structure of innovation. I'm going to challenge a bit. How can, you said the openness, but I saw also in the ecosystem a lot of big corporates. How can this whole human-centric approach and the working group Human Capital maybe play a role in this to, transform?
I think, especially from a corporate perspective, we should differentiate two major areas, like the consumer industry and like the B2B industries. Because if you're creating something, an innovation that like the people around you can use, you need to do that in a way that you're responding to a problem. So in that case, it's more straightforward. When you do innovation in a B2B context, people often are ignorant, not because they're bad people, but just because they're not expert in that field or they don't have visibility. So I think that you have like a couple of options that come to mind. First one is education, working a lot with not with universities, but with younger students in middle school, even elementary school in some cases, and high schools, to make them understand what happens. Because sometimes, I mean, when you think about how water is managed in city, people just use the water and they don't care. They don't think about how it's treated before and after they use it. And if you try to make them understand, in most cases, you will see like how people get like amazed and happy to learn. And that can have a very good riptide effect in like increasing awareness and increasing the willingness to be involved. And in other cases, it is good also to open the corporate door to people and make them come and make them explain what the industries do. This might be done, and I still remember when I was in elementary school, it was a connection of some classmate, but we visited a plastic recycling facility. It was the early 90s, so it was not mainstream to actually recycle. And I still remember it. And that's probably one of the reasons why I wanted to continue with science and chemistry later on. So I think that really, like, by engaging people and make them understand that innovation is actually cool, you can really make them want to develop skills to then be involved and contribute later on in their careers.
Cristian, is it okay if I create a follow-up on that, or do you have a present question as well?
No, I waited for your recap, Naomi.
Thank you, thank you. Because we often with skills development, capacity building, we talk about others that need to be developed. How do you assess the own capability? Victoria already explained a bit, taking in the social scientists to broaden the expertise of the own organizations. We talk about lifelong learning. How does that play a role in the ecosystems?
Well, that's like a big missing part in many cases. So if we think about my personal experience in engaging with ecosystems, that has been definitely what made things more difficult. If you have the knowledge of what happens in like in people's mind and like behavioral knowledge, you can have a much faster and effective communication and engagement strategy and practice. So, and I see it also in how internally in an organization we try to involve other colleagues. We need to do something very fast. We try to instill fear instead of trying to make them understand that there is a win-win solution at the end. So it's really important, and I think that there is still a lot of work to do. We still consider the social sciences completely separated from the hard sciences, and that's not true, especially now and in the future. So I think it's a very, very nice topic to keep in mind for future innovations.
Thank you. And I'm always very curious at the end of the webinars as well, because with lifelong learning and with the steps that we need to take, we always talk about others. So I try at the end of every webinar to bring it back to ourselves. Do we still have wishes for our skills development, for what we think should be our next step, also for an inspiration for others? Victoria, do you have wishes how to develop further and where to go? The next thing you would like to learn?
Yeah, so from my perspective, I really like to absorb all this knowledge from the groups, these very big groups we are creating, in which we have different skills. So it would be really important, according my opinion, not only to learn by others, but also I would like to promote, for example, in Italy, to contribute to create new agronomists that could really have the opportunity of build their career, taking all this knowledge from different kind of professionals. In Italy, we lack of innovation brokers in the field of agriculture. So we really experience this gap existing between the scientists and the farmers. And this is a really big gap. So also contributing in our university as professors to create some, teaching course that can really help the future agronomists to blend all these kind of competencies could be a really big effort, I think, that I would really like to contribute to.
Thank you. Really inspirational. Filippo, what's your next step?
Well, one thing that I truly believe is that the way we educate the future generations is too old style. And so I frankly can learn anything technical from a book, an article, and that's relatively easy. I would like to have the opportunity to sit with younger generations instead of sitting at the desk and teaching them something that they need to learn and taking notes like we did in school 20 years or 40 years ago, to actually listen to them. And I made the example of the NEET Center in the United States. The most interesting parts of my engagement in that ecosystem was to talk with the students. So
really nice, really nice. Would love to work on that as well. Cristian, for you as well, maybe what have you learned from the webinar and what would you like to keep on learning?
I learned a lot of technical issues, but a lot of different parts, no, of an innovation ecosystem. And you know that I fully agree with Filippo and with you that working in teaching, working with young, working together, no. You know that my favorite job is making mentor, no? I will stay with young people, full of energy and idea, no, for making change. Nothing to add of this. And I fully agree. The next step is to make another bridge for this technology center and the civil society, because we knew we need innovation, but we need ethic and sustainable innovation. And this is another bridge with philosophy, with ethic people, other skills for you, no, to develop it, to match together. And Naomi, for you, in this.
Well, there's still so much to learn, but I love to what you bring up now to the ethical. And for those who know me, I have political science and religious studies. So far, I've been bringing in a lot of the political science and the collaboration styles. Maybe I should bring in and learn how to do that, the more ethical discussion and the more religious side of vision of humanity. How can we integrate that into the water sector? Maybe that will be something next, to really create an ecosystem. Yes.
Thank you, Naomi, for organizing this webinar. I leave it to you to close this, because you have made a great job to organize all this webinar. And if you wanted to do also the next one, the floor is yours for closing. And thank you for organizing this webinar, all this webinar.
Yes, so next month there will be a new webinar, and it will be from 3 to 4, the third week of the third Thursday of the month. You will be here soon from the Water Europe channels on the next agenda, and we look forward to seeing you again. Please do also not forget our YouTube channels and on the social medias. You can also watch back our previous versions to catch up if you have time. Thank you.
Thank you also to Vittorio and Filippo, Serena, who organized the job.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Have a nice day. Bye-bye.